Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Who would like to, if anyone, who would like to begin with any concerns? Yeah, Sue. Oh, and Shelley. I said Sue first, so we'll do Sue.
Hi there. I've good to see you, and thank you. I've got my frame round my done the frame, and I'm just doing the two laser stitching. So I was just about to start, and I'm really reluctant to do the sort of to go through to see what feels far more untidy on the back, but I do go through, and I wanted the back to look as neat as the front, I suppose. So is that right? I go all the way through, and so you've got the longer stitches on the back.
That's right, you do. Yeah. And I don't have my other camera set up just yet. There is, on this one that I'm wearing, certainly, which was my first one I ever did, so maybe not the best example. Let me open another. If you do the style where you do it all in one go, where you insert the needle from the front and then have it go straight up at the back, all in one stroke, as opposed to going all the way through, then all the way back up. In the thicker corner sections, it can be easy to have kind of shorter stitches. See there, those are shorter than there.
Yep.
If that is something that you want to consider and prioritize while you're working on this, maybe just another part of your practice, working with that desire for it to be neat and considering, you could do the more effortful way of going all the way through, then all the way back up, and see, you can explore how it feels, making the more effort way for the neatness, exploring that practice edge. And you can even alternate from corner to corner. You can do one corner, where you stay from the right side only, or the one where you're puncturing from both sides. You can even alternate and see how it feels.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for asking. Shelley, how about you?
I actually was really enjoying the practice this week. I had a very stressful week at work, so I was using the sewing as a way to bring my attention back to a particular quality. So I am now ready to measure my straps. And I'm just wondering, I just want to double check before I actually cut them, that it's the length plus 5.2 on each side.
That's right.
So the length plus 10.4, and I'm ready to cut.
That's right. If you're doing the method where you're holding it up to your chest as the test, then that would be, it's going to be from exterior corners plus 10.4.
Okay.
The alternate method, of course, being the single piece of string around your neck in chashu, which should match. That's the theory behind that method.
I tried that a couple of times and I got, everything was always different. So
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to trust that I've got it right and go for it.
And if we would need to send you new strap material, I'll do that.
Okay.
Rest
Thank you.
assured. Yeah,
Thank you.
more questions before we begin? Yeah, Maria. Oh, 3.
Oh, hang on, I've dropped things. Oh dear, there we go. Yeah, so I've pinned my straps, and I've done my neck piece round there. I've zoomed along this week, John. You know, so I'm for basting the straps. I just baste it, do I? And then what stitch do I use across there? Is it the Namu Kie Butsu?
Yes. Let me, since there's a lot of folks nearing this step, let me go ahead and set my other camera up. Actually, let me see what the other 2 questions are. And then, because I do want to show yours on camera. Basting, that's in the instructions, is that correct? For that phase, you baste first, then
You baste and then you do the, yeah. And then I've got one more question about the PineNeedle stitch for you after that. I don't think we've actually got the straps being attached on camera. If you know what I mean, somebody actually doing the straps at any point. So it might be useful at some point to.
I do. So this Rakasu that I've been working on camera, I'm sending it back to Austin without straps attached, so that we don't know who it's going to yet. However, I do plan on starting one of my own, but it's going to be such a long time before I can get to the straps on that, of course. So I suppose I could create a little mock-up piece on how to attach and demonstrate that way on camera. I can certainly talk it through though today. I can do that here once I get this camera set up and the other questions. Does that sound? For now though, your next step is the basting. Your next step is doing your very best to make sure that you're basting good and square below where your Namu Kie Butsu stitch will sit, which will be at the top edge of the frame, almost as though it's continuous from the outer edge on the frame. That line of Namu Kie Butsu stitches, it should look almost continuous when you have finished the straps.
Right, so you just do it right through.
That's right. Well, you'll be doing it just on the strap attachments for now. You're only going to be sewing there, but it will look as though it's a long line of stitches. So baste below there, tight and square, just like a good tight strong stitch, and then as square as you can. And then I will circle back and explain, because this is those reinforced stitches, which I might want to demonstrate on camera again. This is where you use the knotless and reinforced stitch.
All right. And can I ask you one question about the PineNeedle stitch?
Yes.
It's like when you, I've done my little diagram off the internet, off the instructions. So I've drawn it out because it's the complete, what do you call it? It's the same, what do you call it when they're the same measurements? Anyway, it's the same measurement in life when you print it out and cut it out. And so I've done that. And then it says that it's like, should A or D, you know, when it says A or D on it, be which one's pointing to your left shoulder? And is
A
it
will point to your left shoulder.
A does.
So, can you see that?
Yeah, I'm just going to spotlight you a minute, so stay there.
This is my left hand, in case I know that I see mine mirrored, but I'm not always confident what y'all see. This is my left hand.
I just screenshotted that because it's really useful.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I can. Yes, the PineNeedle splays out towards the right.
Right. Yeah. Great. Because it
But
was
it is,
what a job inverting those straps and doing that bit.
oh
That's
yeah, I mentioned that as one of those like just trust it origami phases.
yeah,
Yeah, I think the screenshot you got is adequate, but make sure that the orientation you've got, it's looping around as though it's around your neck. You're not sewing, just make sure that if you're holding it up, that
yeah.
the neck piece is facing downwards, and then it's going to be on the left side is where
So
that,
the C is facing downwards, isn't it? When you,
yes.
yeah, yeah,
In the diagram, C is down, F is down, E is at the top. So it's just as though, just like it is on the diagram. Once you have the if you're holding it this way in this orientation where the long bit goes downward.
yeah. Great, that's really helpful. And
The last
yeah,
is
that's me done. Thank you very much. Yeah.
and MarLa, since you're off mute and you're one of the
Yes.
3 remaining. Go ahead.
So since I had the opportunity to completely undo my frame and start from scratch, trying to, well, it's a miracle that it even turned out as square as it was. I've learned a lot. I'm getting ready to Hera it again, and I have a question about, because that was a challenge for me last time. It appeared almost like the chalk marks appeared on the reverse side once I Hera'd it, and I know that that's impossible for it to transfer from side to side. But what surface is it best to do the harrowing on? I have a granite table, and that's very, very hard. And I'm afraid to use the Hera very hard on it. What is the best way to do that?
Do you have another piece of fabric you can lay underneath that? Because that would be ideal. A very hard surface that won't get damaged by the harrowing action.
Well, the
With
surface won't be damaged.
yeah, it sounds like it. And then on top of that, a piece of fabric that like scrap fabric, which you could even move as you do each corner, or you can relocate it as needed.
Because it'll protect the frame. Is that what that will do?
Yes. Otherwise, you risk getting. You do want. It sort of creates both a little bit of contour in the fabric, but it can also kind of create a sheen where the fabric where all of the threads have been really compressed, and so they all reflect light from the same angle, so it looks shinier. And you don't want that to be too pronounced because it's like chalk in that way, but even maybe harder to get out than chalk.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. All right, Hilary, how about you?
Hi, John.
Hey.
I have cut out my frame, measured it and everything. All the crawling around on the floor, you should have seen my knees last night.
I hope they're all right now.
Well, they're still a bit red. So I was watching the videos that Maria suggested. I watched the last year's 16 and 17. And I noticed that you go over the running stitch and then you take it out. And so this running stitch that I've almost finished. I've done running stitches of 3 of the corners, and I'm just doing the running stitch of the final corner. When I take the pins out, when I do another row stitching, do I do that row on the Hera line?
You're talking about for the running stitch.
Yeah, so I noticed in that old video that you very carefully sew again, and then you take out your original running stitches.
That might have been a fluke of what I was explaining, kind of the unique circumstances of the process of explaining, for lack of a better word. To my recollection, there is only a single running stitch done just outside the Hera line. That is, the single running stitch 2 millimeters outside the pin lines. That is the only step before you invert it. Once you've inverted it, there will be the Namu Kie Butsu stitches that create the familiar corner pattern. And that goes, but that's a very different experience. At this phase before you invert.
Yeah.
response.
So I'm not sure what was going on when you were really carefully sewing it again and then using a quick unpick to take out the old stitches. So basically, I don't do that. I just leave the running stitches that I've got outside the Hera line.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
okay. And I would like you to demonstrate at some point today this turning of ears and which side you fold towards you and which side you fold away, and whether it's different at the different corners. You know, like the one that's a rough edge compared with the ones that are in the middle of it. So if you could do that, that would be great.
I'd be happy to.
And one more question.
Sure.
Just a quick one. When you're snipping the corners off on there, because I haven't taken the corners off, do I take the corner off the silk as well as off the interfacing?
Yes, that's right. And you'll want at least like the on the like a right triangle, these two lengths should be at least a ½ inch to create. I don't know how long that makes this hypotenuse, but this should be a ½ inch and this should be a ½ inch. So if it does capture some silk, that's okay.
Do you mean you're cutting off something where two sides of the triangle be cut off a ½ inch? Is that right?
Yes, each side of the right triangle will be a ½ inch.
Okay, right. Okay, thanks, John.
Not taking off much. You should only be, from what I saw, you should only be taking off, a tiny bit of silk.
Yeah, because you can see where my stitches are. You can see where my stitches are.
Looks great. Yeah.
Yeah, so just take off about ½ inch. Right. Thank you.
That's right. Yes, you're welcome. And I'll demonstrate the folding here in a bit.
Thank you.
Of course. Claire, how about you?
Hi, John.
Hi.
I am attaching the neck piece to the straps, and I see it says to orientate the straps so that they are seam side up, and I read that as that the seams are visible to me when they're laid out on the table. Does it make a difference whether the seam sides also fall at the top or the bottom when it's laid out, if they're next to the neck piece or above?
It does. Yes, good question. Okay, so this is, you're on page 12 of the instructions?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so this is how it should look when you're done. And I'll also use it to explain the orientation. So here you see, this is the visible, your seam is visible. It's at the top edge on both sides. So that's not precise. That should probably be on the other side. Oh, is that right? No, on both of them, because it's going to end up. Can I demonstrate with my real Rakasu? You do want them. So this isn't the one I'm wearing at the moment. This is the top right corner, and the seams are facing to the right and kind of on the back side on both straps. On both straps, they are to the right, and the seam is the seam is on the back. And assembling this way, where you have neck piece with the seam showing downward, and you have the seam visible to you on both of them away from the neck piece.
Right.
And then that would be your back stitch, which I think is to scale, but not a ½ centimeter, obviously, in this diagram. That's only 2 or 3 mil.
Perfect.
Is that clear?
Yes, that's lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, great. I'll get on with that, and then also I'll pay close attention when you're demonstrating securing the straps to the Rakasu, because I'll be there soon.
Yes, you're very close. It's exciting. I'm gonna try to be precise, but I may not be. This is theoretically lined to.
Sorry, John, are you doing one of the closed beads, not the end?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I already had the end pinned, and I just need to hold them. This one has got a running stitch, so I'll just leave it as is. And last but not least, I just need it to hold it folded at the where the long the I don't know how to describe this fold. I just need this fold to hold in place as I'm explaining. Because at this phase, I don't think you would have your pins. You would have no pins in it yet. You would just have your running stitch, and you're going to be placing pins at this phase. So imagine my pins are running stitches just outside the Hera lines instead of, well, pins. I'm going to start at, let me get my instructions out so I'm pretty confident I remember which one.
Does it differ depending which corner you're doing?
So it doesn't matter. It will matter. I'll describe it that way. So you always start with the cut edges first. You're going to start with them first, and you're going to face them away from you. And from here, all that matters is that you follow the correct order and you keep track of where this corner is. Because everything, this is your source of truth. If you start in this orientation and you follow those steps, you cannot be led astray. So I'm going to read from the instructions. Start with the first corner where the two ends of the fabric meet. Bring the right hand piece of fabric down toward you, folding it at the Hera line. So you see, if that's the, you can kind of see in the, it extends past the midline, which you can kind of see folded there. There's about a couple of mil over the, that's the seam allowance from my scale model. This is one seam allowance worth beyond this midline that I've already folded because I've done this, I've done and undone this a dozen times. For you, it just simply should be half of the full width would be your midline. So that comes toward you on this first corner. And it's okay that it overlaps a little bit. And that was my point in describing that. And then the left-hand side goes away from you. And you're focusing on doing it on the Hera line, even though it will cause this sort of, you know, this arc of fabric across the, because you've got these extra seam allowances. That's okay, and that's normal. So first, let me pin this right side. And you want to pin so that it only catches one layer of the what will end up being the facing fabric, the right side fabric. You only want to get one layer of that. So the process is sort of fold over your corner, then split the fabric, pin it, and then kind of put it flat again so that you can now do the other side. So here I'm still on the first corner where the two ends meet, but I'm going to quickly flip it around just so I can see what I'm doing. But I'm remembering that I currently have it rotated, and I'm going to return it to its original orientation once I've got this pinned. Oof, this is hard on the scale model. So that is roughly it, where I have pinned my dog ears, as the instruction calls them, on both sides. I pinned these the wrong way, pardon. Let me, so do not pin it as I just pinned it, Hilary. And I'm sorry if this causes a, I'll go ahead and redo it on camera so that we're aligned if you were following the way I was pinning. You're going to be accessing these pins and repinning them. So these pins, because you invert the material, these pins are going to end up on the inside, and you need to be able to extract them and replace them on on the outside, so they're not buried in the inside of the frame. It is easiest to do so. This will become further, the edge. This will be the outer edge of the material, so it's easier to access if you pin it this way. So I'm still done. I've just reversed it. I'm looking at the back now, and I'm just repinning. Okay, so I'm going to reverse it one more time. This is the original orientation we started with on the first corner, with this one coming towards me. So that from here, you're going to go around and keep making sure you keep the same orientation. You pull the material towards you. So that was off camera, sorry. So here's that first corner. The right side is coming towards me. I'm going to pull the whole loop of fabric toward me, rolling it like a wheel across my hands until I come to the next corner. This corner is going to be the exact opposite. The right corner goes away and the left corner comes toward. So I'm going to do the left corner first because I can see it without reversing. And I'm pinning one layer of fabric, I think. No, I did catch it. Do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, for demonstration purposes. And then the right will go away. And this time, it should come to a pretty neat corner at the tip because you don't have that excess seam allowance fabric. It should come to a much tighter corner and roughly on the midline when you've folded it down along the hairline. Okay. So that is my second corner. From here, you will alternate corners. So the next one you're going to do, right hand comes toward, left hand goes away. Would you like me to just go ahead and go all the way around with you?
Yes, please. Can I just, that's the second one that you've just done. You've now got
That's right.
4 pins in it.
But remember, I'm using pins where you have a running stitch.
Oh, yes, yes, of course.
That goes
yes.
to.
Yeah.
These are
Sorry.
those are the hairlines though that you're looking at though.
You keep on
So
pulling
go,
the fabric.
yeah. So this should be closer to what you actually have with my very loose and now messed up running stitch. But you're back to, this is the third corner. So you're going to do what you did on the first corner. Right hand side comes toward you, fold on the hairline, pin, and then hold it flat again, align everything, and the left side goes away, folding on the hairline. Put it all together. Mine's looking a little rough and ready. I would make sure it's a little tighter than mine has wound up. But that is the third. Are you ready for the fourth?
Yep.
Okay. This is the fourth, and these are pinned on the hairlines where you would have running stitches 2 millimeters outside. But this one, the right edge goes away on the hairline. And so that would be the final corner. I have a hard time turning this little model inside out because these pins are so long. Where they would work on a full size model, but from here, you will invert every corner. And what's most important when you, you really are just turning the whole thing inside out, which basically just means poking the corners, you know, try to poke that outward. And I can't do it because the pins are in the way. But once you do, the key piece, you're gonna, it's a lot of holding your tongue just right. Let me see if I can actually get this for you. Pull that out far enough.
So now it's pinned, that's when you start turning it.
Yes, that's right. And the result, at this point, it will still require a lot of manipulation and a lot of, you know, hand squaring. The key piece that you have the running stitch will help you maintain orientation, and the pins help you make sure that the dog ears are landing correctly. And that's where the, when we talk about, good grief. Okay, so these pins are too long for me to properly demonstrate, but I talk about, this is the bottom edge that we're looking at, that on the front, the top and bottom edges will be on top of the short edges. So the long edges sit on top of the short edges on the front and the reverse on the back. What we're doing here in this inversion step by keeping these pins in place, that if you can see, even though my material's all kind of messed up, that this pin has the dog ear on this outer edge of the frame, and this outer edge of the frame on the outside will directly match, that's going to be one whole edge on the finished Rakasu, and where this pin is going through it determines where that dog ear should sit. If you just follow and trust and make sure that the dog ears stay kind of in their correct orientation, it should naturally, automatically turn out into, well, that looks rough, but that you can see that's sort of a Rakasu frame corner. And it naturally has, so this is the top left corner, by the way. Once you have inverted it, I really strongly recommend you take a piece of white thread if you have it, or some other non-matching or vibrant thread, to just make a little mark so that it's very clear which is the top left corner. That's what the mark looks like on mine that I've been working on. This mark will help you remember that this is your top left corner, and it will stay there all the way until you attach the frame.
So John, when I've turned mine, I don't know if you can see, this is the corner with the rough edges where the two raw ends went together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see that on mine. This is my corner. Now, now do I sort of take the pins out from the inside and put them to the outside? Because you can see the knobbles are there in the way.
What I would do first, for what I see on yours, try to, how do I describe this? So right now, see how the corner is coming together on, how do I describe this? You've got it, let me take these pins out. I think I can demonstrate it. So you've got it currently like this, where you've got the seams at the corners. What you're going to need to do now, before you do what you just described, I recommend, and there would be pins to help these dog ears stay in the right place, is to open it up and fold it like this so that the seams are dead square in the middle at a 45-degree angle. And that's when you start removing your pins. That's when you can start at this phase. Once you have what I'm demonstrating here, you can remove that interior pin and replace it on the outside. And that will be, you'll hold that in place until you baste this corner before sewing this corner.
So that's when you'll see the chalk marks lining up next to each other.
That's right.
And John, just a quick question. If sometimes you give us a margin of error on things, if the seam allowances don't come to a perfect point at that corner and the hairline's on the opposite side, how much variance would be acceptable?
Maybe 1 or 2 millimeters. What I would instead try to do at this phase though, so you've got that running stitch. I don't, so I can't actually let go, but you've got that running stitch inside and you'll have a pin keeping the dog ears on the correct side, but you can unpin and repin as long as I'm holding the dog ear here in my left thumb, and I'm not sure which corner this is, so don't scrutinize it too closely. But as long as you've got your dog ear in place and you keep it on that same edge, you can unpin, repin, renegotiate as much as you need to. Don't do it. I would say try not to ever get to a point where you're fully, disassembling. But if you need to unpin and adjust a millimeter or two, by all means. That's this phase that you're safe because you've got that running stitch inside and you've now got pins outside to help keep things straight.
So the intersection of those two lines then is sort of essential to it being square when you're done.
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, and you'll have the whole thing to kind of have as reference, and you'll be amazed that it's like magic, that you turn it inside out and lo and behold, this top left corner, I think that's what this is on top. I'm looking at the front and it's on top of the side. They're kind of coming together. Like this is an example where I would adjust because you can see they're not really coming together very neatly, but I haven't pulled out that inner pin just yet. So you have a chance to do so. But it really comes together, I think, more naturally. I think it surprises people how this comes together.
Yeah, it absolutely surprised me how
That's right, you've done it. Yeah, yeah.
But so I had another question. Let me just flit it away.
Hilary, is that clear to you? Or are you?
I'm not sure what I'm aiming for, to be honest, because it looks like quite a nice shaped corner.
Mm-hmm.
But the heads of the pins inside are stopping it being really crisp because the heads of the pins are sticking into, they're pushing it out. That's a pin there pushing that out.
Have you removed the pins on the inside yet? Oh, you mean so you're still at
on the inside.
You remove the pins once you have this seam at the 45-degree angle.
What, I've got to make another seam?
So you've got your seam. I see you. It looks good in your hand there. Let me try to get it with another corner. Remove this one. Okay. So it looks to me, and you can confirm if this is true or untrue. It looks to me like you are, oh gosh, fiddly, huh? Okay, I've got a little bit of twist on that side. I'm removing my pin just so I can do it. And I can see from the back of that pin that's where that dog ear is. So I know this dog ear is going to be on this side instead. And I'm going to actually temporarily repin the front. In fact, yeah, I think it's okay. You asked earlier if you can just repin at this phase, and I think you can. So I've still got my seams just right on the edge here. And so if we take where you're at and remove the pins, but make sure you're very clear on where the dog ears, which outside edge of the dog ear is going, then I think we can make more clear progress. Let me know when you've got one corner pinned on the outside.
I thought of my question, John.
Yeah, what was it?
Oh, it was about the running stitch. So your example there was a fairly loose and long running stitch.
Yes.
And so how important is the 2 mm distance from the hairline or the chalk mark? If that distance is critical to them turning inside out correctly, would I be better served doing a really tight and small running stitch?
I would say so the instructions actually give a pretty good example. Those are probably half or 5 to 4 millimeter long stitches on that running stitch.
Yeah.
But they do have that extra space and that loop. The what that 2 millimeters gives you is the ability to open these up and have a little bit of flexibility at this phase. So that is what that extra space allows for you.
Right.
I don't think that these have to be super duper strong, but they shouldn't come loose, and they should be able to hold their shape if you pull these corners open.
Okay, so the precision of them is not critical?
No, they won't actually serve. They will not serve a structural purpose. As soon as you're past the phase that I'm currently in, which is, beginning this half fold process, they will not be needed at all.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. So Hilary, have you gotten so that your pins are now on the outside? On at least one corner? Okay.
Yes, just on that first corner that's got the rough edges. Yeah, so that my pins are on the outside.
That looks good. So if you can follow in the fabric may not want to do this for you as easily as for me, because I've configured it a lot, but you're going to stick your thumb into that corner and begin to try to flatten it so that so instead of these seams being on the edges, we're going to try to bring them, I'll do it in one fluid motion. We're going to try to bring them like this. So you're going to try to go from here to here. Were you able to see what I did?
No.
Okay. So you've got a finger or a thumb in your corner. Let's look at it. Let's look at it from dead on, as just straight ahead. And you've got, you've got what I see here. You've roughly got that. Try to bring those seams back to back. See if that makes some sense to you. So I took this.
It does. Got it.
That worked? That made sense? Yeah, everyone's brain works a little differently. Yeah, that looks like it.
It's magic.
Well done. It's really good when you just see it happen, isn't it?
Yeah. And so from here, it's kind of an iterative process. You do it to all 4 corners. You get them all kind of the correct orientation, and then you begin to manipulate them to make sure that to the greatest extent possible, this length is the same as this length, at least from not the full length, but from the chalk line to the outer edge, making sure that that's the same, that to the greatest extent they come together in a nice sharp 90-degree corner. And once you have gotten everything kind of in place, that's when you can start doing the basting. And that's when I want you to relocate your top left corner, that first corner that you're doing with the extra fabric, and and mark it, which you do by simply orienting it so that it is in the top left corner of the frame. And you'll simply mark it. I don't have a good way to demonstrate that. This is it.
That's okay, thank you.
But you're clearer now on the path forward?
Well, honestly, John, to find a way of showing me that my brain could get, you deserve real credit for that. Really, really could you get it? So thank you.
Well, you've got it now.
I think I've got it now. Thank you.
Shelley and I were sewing together one day when I turned mine inside out, as wrong as it was, and I almost wept. I mean, I was seriously so overcome with emotion that it worked.
That's great. MarLa, did you think of your question?
Well, thank you for Maria's patience. That is absolute perfect timing for me because I've just inverted the neck piece and straps and I've ironed it, so I'm ready.
Yes, thank you for your patience, Maria. I'm going to demonstrate on just a piece of sample fabric. The process will be the same. It will just be more fiddly because of how many layers of material you're working with. So this will be a knotless process. So I'm going to show the start of it. The finish will be the exact reverse. So you're going to start like a normal knotless knot, and you're going to leave a tail just like a standard knotless knot. And you're going to do these, I recommend doing them on both corners or both edges of each of the 4 points where straps connect. So you're going to do this both at the start and finish on each of the 4 connections. What we're basically doing is we're going to reverse on ourselves and go back. We're going to sneakily add some extra stitches right on top of the others, which is visible in the finished garment, but with the added reinforcement that it gives, it is worthwhile. So I recommend you get 3 full stitches before, or you do this over 3 full stitches. And each stitch will get 3 stitches, so it's almost like you have 9 stitches where you would have had just 1. So I'm going to go down, and from here, so go all the way down and through. This is at the end of your 3rd stitch. Pull it tight. So I'm going to attempt to skip exactly 1 thread worth of material and come out 1 thread on the back, 1 thread on the front. And the purpose of this is simply to, so now if you notice, normally you start your Namu Kie Butsu stitches in the top left, but now I'm starting in the bottom right. What that allows me to do is to directly reverse or completely reverse the stitch. From here, you can use the exact same holes. You can follow where the white thread already, well, whatever thread color you're using, you can follow it on the front and the back from here. Looks like I missed on the back. Let's try and do it this time. It's more important on the front, of course, because it's showing, but it's nice if the back can also. So I've got it on the back, but I missed on the front. Where am I? Okay. So I'm just backing out my thread a little bit. Whoops. Correct on the front. And the back's up pretty good. I'm about 1 thread off, so I will accept it. come up again, and then I'm going to go all the way, one thread away, I'll take it. You can be as precise as you'd like. Up on the bottom right. And then you're going to finish. We're going to do the same maneuver we did here, to get us going back the correct direction again. Actually, we're going to go back to here. I suppose you could reverse here as well, because this will become your first stitch once you do the hidden stitch technique, or hidden knot rather, the knotless start. Yeah, let's take it back. Hard, and I'm going to do one more. Okay, so there we have our stitches. Looks like I was a little further away than I would like to be on this one. But anytime you're reversing, you can't use the exact same hole because it will, you'll unstitch the stitch you just stitched if you use the exact same hole on front and back, which is unlikely that you would ever, be able to do that unless you're trying. But we were kind of trying. I'm actually going to demonstrate an even more fiddly option if you have the vision to do it on the reverse. So this option is viable, where you do one stitch away to begin reversing, because right now we're trying to reverse and go in the normal direction. Caught my thread. So an alternate version, I've demonstrated this before in another method. So you're going to try to come up underneath without splitting the thread. You're trying to come up underneath the existing thread. So you can see I have, just barely kind of displaced the white thread, and the needle is coming up underneath the stitch. So this is a less visible method of reversing. And so now this is going the correct direction now. So I'm going to go back in the bottom right. And from here, you simply sew. You sew your standard Namu Kie Butsu all the way across. And of course, you will still have this free tail that you will tuck and bury, just like you would with a knotless start or finish. That part is unchanged for this process. The key difference is that you're doing, like on a sewing machine, you're reversing the stitch for reinforcement and security. And that's really all there is to it. So just to talk it through, so now we're doing a normal stitch. You'd go all the way across your 4.2 centimeters. You'd get to where you want to end, and then you do that either one stitch on the outside or in the middle, you reverse. You go back 3 or 4, then you reverse one more time, and then you go out, you bury your tail for your knotless finish, and then you come back and you bury the tail for the knotless start. And you should have, it would look roughly like this, where you can see that is 3. Those first 3 or 4 have 3 stitches in them. Over time, they really become less visible than they used to be. This one is maybe a better example. You can see these first, I think 4 have triple stitches. You can see on the back, it's just kind of an old mess. So I was okay with the back not being I was okay with the back being very honest. I'll say that. That it is a reflection of what is on the front. And I think I still am, especially because you're going to be going over an existing edge stitch. So it's going to be impossible for you to match that and all of the different layers of this stitch. It would, not impossible, but possibly more fiddly than it's worth.
Can I just check, John?
Yes.
Do you do the 3 reinforcement stitches at the beginning of a strap and at the end of a strap, or do you go right across 2 straps?
You do separate. So this is one line of stitches that is all on its own. This is in another
Right, yeah.
thread all on its own.
Ron, you've described 2 knotless stitches, one that is more structurally sound than the other. Do they have different names?
No. I would call this a knotless, or I would call this one that I just demonstrated reinforced knotless. Whereas if you just had normal stitches with the tail, I would call that knotless.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry if I could. Thanks so much. Sorry, I just have a couple of questions on this. Thanks, John. That was really clear. The instructions refer to using double thread. Do we ignore that?
Oh, we never did that. You can. You're welcome to do double threads. That would be another option. I think in that case, I would not do the reverse reinforcement method.
The instructions say both.
Oh. Let me look at the one I'm wearing. Goodness. Last couple of folks, oh, I did do double thread on all of these. Yes, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Yeah, it's been so long since someone asked about this phase that I haven't really needed a refresher myself. Thank you, Clare. That's a great call out. Yeah, so maybe on. What did you say, Marie?
It is double thread then. Double threaded.
Yes, double thread. And I trust the instructions so that if they sew with double thread across the straps, reinforce points of strain. Yeah. So both and you will do both this reinforced start, but you'll do it with a double thread.
Fine. And then we just end up with 2 pieces of loose thread either side to tuck back in.
Yes, that's right. And if
Okay.
I think you might want to get them to where the shorter one is the right length and then snip them both just for the ease of threading.
Great. And then the final question, just for placing, it says place inside straps at outside corner of Rakasu. Is it when I'm sort of holding the straps over the face, is it the upper strap that goes to the inside or the outside?
So let me just attempt to, is that whole thing on camera? Okay, behind us. So you can, hopefully you can follow this diagonal. There it is. Okay. So you can see that this is the back. This will be visible to other people when it's being worn. So it's that side of the seam of the neck piece. And you can see that this is what they mean by the outside going to the inside and the inside going towards the outside. So said differently, if you have, so this is the right edge of my Rakasu that we're looking at. And if you have your neck piece facing towards the right at the very top, at the end of this length, the bottom one will attach to the outside edge of your Rakasu. The top one will be inside of that.
I think it's good to demonstrate that with you on it. You've got the Rakasu on, and then you can see how the inside strap comes out to the outside, if that makes sense.
You're suggesting I wear it?
Yeah, I'll just show you what I mean. Hang on, where's my so I've got mine like that. So the inside strap coming from the back of that. So if I'm wearing it, the inside strap comes down to the outside. And the
Great.
strap that's there goes down to there to the. Do you see what I mean?
I do, and it's the same on both sides, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, they're just basted, by the way. Don't take
Great.
it about the look.
The quickest ever. Okay, perfect. So yeah, that's really helpful. So if I'm wearing it, the one closest to my skin goes to the outside.
That's right.
Lovely.
That'll be
And-
the closest to your skin on the outside. Yeah.
And the
Great.
folded edges are closest to your heart, and the seam edges are to the outside there, Maria?
It's those face away from your body or from your
Okay.
heart, and the folded
So the
edges
folds are
towards
to
your
the heart and the seams are to the outsides.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh, on my little squares here, just folding these sides. And I just want to, you probably can't see this, how I folded the corner, but I just want to be sure that this is, I don't know. Does that look right? The way I folded that corner? If I folded the flap over once I started on the second side.
Well, so did you fold it under?
I folded it under the flap. Is
Interesting. That little corner
Yeah.
quarter fold.
Yeah, it's kind of neat
Uh,
that way, but it might not be correct.
It is. No, I think that actually that looks good. I think that would be a fine way of doing it. The problem I think you might have with that is it's kind of in shadow now. Will you be able to pin through that quarter fold?
It's pretty bulky, but you know, I did one on the other side. Yeah, you can't see.
Yeah. Could you maybe use the lamp and get the lamp in front of the material and between the material and the camera? It's tricky, isn't it? The lamp's so bright.
Yeah,
Are you
it's
doing?
so small.
And you're doing the instruction method, right?
Well, I really couldn't understand what they were. The picture is so bad.
It's small.
Because it just, all it says is turn under the 0.8 margin and iron along this fold to prevent the folded under margin from sticking out at the corner. Fold the flap back again diagonally. I folded it under, so I don't know if that.
I think they meant fold it back towards the back of the Rakasu, which would be visible to you as opposed to under. But I don't think it's hugely material. The only concern I would have would be the process of folding, of pinning and making sure that it stays in place nice and tight as
When
you're
I'm
basting.
sewing.
Yeah, exactly. That is my concern. And if it is not visible because you tucked it under, it might be harder to pin accurately, but at the same time, you have that layer of material to hold it in place. So it might not be a concern once all is said and done.
Maybe I should baste it that way, and if it seems to work, go with it.
Yes, that's
Baste it on that way.
always a good approach. Yeah, this material is pretty forgiving if you do need to rip it and rebaste it. Just to confirm, you did this method here. Let me switch cameras. Ooh, so many cameras. Okay, you did this method here, where you first folded one whole edge down, then another whole edge over, and then the quarter fold.
And
Is that what you did?
Then I folded, yeah, that sounds right. And then I folded that corner under.
Okay, so you did, yeah, it's the exact same as this, except
Oh,
you
okay.
can't see those little, yeah. And if they stay in place as you're working with it, I think that under is fine. It's just harder to, when it's on top, you have to be very careful with pinning it. But if it stays in place, that might actually be a better approach, and I might try that myself.
Okay.
right. Well, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, let me know. I'm really excited that you may have stumbled upon a better way of doing this, because they don't get called tricky little squares
For
for
nothing.
nothing.
So my second step would be to make sure the corners are precisely right angles. Mark the lines on the frame with chalk so that the squares can be easily filled. So, like, make a square on the frame like that with a chalk. Is that what it's
Where
um
mark lines on frame with chalk so that squares can be easily placed. You mean? Yeah, you're going to. That's what I take a ruler and 5 millimeters out, make a line, and 5 millimeters out, make a line, and making sure that it comes to a square corner that is also square with the existing frame corner to the greatest extent possible. Of course, that's
actually I'm not exactly sure. I guess from the photograph where to place it, but does it describe where to place it exactly?
it does. The squares overlap 5 millimeters onto frame. And if it overlaps 5 millimeters this direction, 5 millimeters on one side and 5 millimeters on another side, these 5 millimeters, well, that's not 5 millimeters at all, is it? Let's use a bet.
I'm sorry, where is that on the description? Is it on the description, what you just said?
Yes, the squares overlap 5 millimeters onto frame. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I just can't find. Oh, here it is. I got it. Squares overlap 5 millimeters onto frame. Okay, I'm just gonna grab my frame.
Mhm.
Okay.
Let me demonstrate actually with the back, so it's easier. Ignore the existing stitching. It's almost like you're just taking it, putting it straight into this corner, and then displacing it 5 millimeters in both directions. So if you lined it up exactly into that corner of the frame, and then you went 5 millimeters in one direction and 5 millimeters out the other direction, that's where your squares will end up.
Got it. Okay. Excellent. Okay. All right.
Let me know if your confidence wanes. Let me know. I'm here.
I shall, of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I've pinned. Could I please do a final check?
Yes.
For baste.
Spotlight.
Okay, so I've got the Rakasu, the neck piece is there, the straps come over, the one closest to my body sits to the outside, right down to the edge of the frame.
Yes.
And the thing I'm just checking is and this is the thing I know we were talking about right at the end, the way I have it at the minute, the fold of the fabric is on the inside and the seam is on the outside.
That's exactly right.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I sort of thought the seams would be hidden. I hope it's not. Mine aren't ironed too messily.
That's interesting. What you might have done, I think, let me think, 70% sure that at this point, if you unpinned and just reversed if you 180'd, if you take which straps are now attaching to the right and attach them to the left instead,
Yeah.
I think if you did that, I think that would resolve that issue. I don't know where my demonstration piece was.
Yes, I see that. Great.
Am I right in thinking that the seam should be invisible?
Yeah, the seam, ideally, the seams are folded in such a way that they're completely on one side of the strap. So that once you tuck and you pull through.
Yeah, because mine aren't visible, so I was just concerned because I could see Claire's.
No, I think that that was I think that they were visible was concerning to Claire. So
Yeah, exactly.
okay, so let me, yeah. So what you basically had was this, where it's down, so that, or rather, you had this. So you were looking at it, and you pinned to the face, and they were visible. And I see now I can kind of prove out that if you simply reverse that left to right, that they are no longer visible.
Yes, great, but they're still on the outside, not the inside.
They're still
Perfect.
on the outside. Yeah.
So glad I checked, as always. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for asking.
Glad it was a simple solution, Claire. Just thinking about having to redo them. Oh.
So, John, can I ask you something?
Yes.
I've got my rectangle, which is rectangular when I'm not holding it up and it's bowing. It seems to be fine. So the next thing is that I do the Namu Kie Butsu Stitch, sort of down it so that it doesn't go all the way through. Then down the other side in each corner. And is that all I do before I start trying to insert the face into the frame?
Yes, that's right. Did you say you already basted?
No, I haven't yet. Do I baste it? I've just pinned it.
Yes, baste first, then, oh, excuse me. Baste first. Once you've basted, then do what you described. Namu Kie Butsu up one edge, and then skip over that corner and continue with the same thread down the other side.
Down the back.
Down the back, yeah. And stay out of the seam allowances. So you'll start inside the seam, or just, you'll start not in the seam allowance. How do I describe that?
Yeah.
Okay. You'll start not in the seam allowance on one side. You'll travel up the edge, and you'll just kind of, inside the fabric, you'll skip that corner and start again on the opposite side. And in each case, you're sewing on top of the existing, or on the top side of whichever material is on top. On that side, you will sew, even though it kind of switches from front to back.
Okay, yeah. And that's all I do then, and then I kind of press the outside edge so that I know where it is, and then I try and put the face in.
Generally, we don't press at this face. Put the face in first, and you'll attach this edge. You'll go all the way around the frame. You'll attach those edges. You'll do the same on the back, and it naturally kind of presses itself as you work your way from inner seams to outer seams. So there's no more pressing at this phase.
And you do the inner.
Yeah, so you'll fit your frame into your face. You'll do the front inner, then you'll do the back inner, then you'll do the middle.
You don't go all the way through. You don't go all the way through.
No, the front inner and back inner do not go all the way through. They should not be visible on the opposite side in either case. The middle and the outer go all the way through. So inside edge stitch and that's the one that you're really going to focus. So focus on, when you talk about getting your, that seam allowance that you drew, that rectangle that you redrew around the perimeter, getting your frame seam allowance to match that seam allowance is priority number one in that phase. This may mean that this back piece is not exactly the same length as this back piece, and that's why we're not pressing at this phase, because we're prioritizing the front being square and as even as possible, and what happens on the back happens on the back. We try to make it neat, square, and 0.5 on the front is 0.5 on the back, but if it's not, it's not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And at this phase, I think focus on the near tasks. There are images of all of these phases in video for reminder, and of course you can ask me if it's next week. Let's talk about it then.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Shelley? Sorry. Okay. Well, it's good to see you all. There will be class next week. Don't anticipate. Oh, wait. Actually, give me just a moment. No, we will have class next week. If you want to make plans to do something fun and foolish on Sunday, August the 6th, that does not involve sewing, you will be free. August 6th, I will have 5 guests in my house sleeping here, so wish me luck. So one bow out, one to the altar and one to each other. Thank you all again.
Thank you, John. Thank you for turning up when you're feeling so tired as well. Appreciate it.
And thank you for your
so much,
generosity and
John.
graciousness.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all. It's been
Bye-bye.
really-
Everybody's doing so great. You newcomers, like, I'm like, I'm catching up to you.
Rosemarie, you did great too. You're just seeing your experience from
Absolutely.
someone else's perspective.
It's really lovely. See ya.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.